I get it. You want to become a UX UI designer, but you don't know how. There are tons of resources out there that can be overwhelming to choose from. Or you have looked at a few resources, but you really don't know how to apply them. Well, in this video, I'm not only going to share resources that I trust and that I've personally used, but show you how to make the most of them with a realistic example. Let's go. So your first step should be setting the right mindset, which basically means that you want to establish why you want to become a UX designer in the first place. This reason will help keep you going and stay motivated throughout this journey. Let's face it, most people want to break into UX because they want money and freedom. However, in reality, UX design isn't the highest paying job in tech. Software developers and other engineers make a lot more money than UX designers in the long run. Plus, UX designers do work long hours, especially towards the end of client deadlines. Therefore, your reason to become a UX designer should be more intrinsic, meaning there shouldn't be anything tangible like money associated with it. For example, my reason for becoming a UX UI designer was because I could design something that could potentially be used by people in their daily lives. If you look at all the apps that we use today, food delivery apps, ride-sharing apps, calculators, health apps, and so on. These are apps that were designed by real designers like you and me, and it's something that we use in our daily lives. The idea that I could design something sitting on my desk that is used by someone probably at the other end of the world in their daily life really inspired me. So in this video, I'm not going to simply give you a list of tutorials and courses to watch, as it can be very difficult to apply your learnings in the real world, which can be overwhelming and discouraging. Instead, I'm going to give you a glimpse of what a designer does in real life with a realistic example. And as we walk through this example, I'm going to be pointing out concepts in a designer's process, and accordingly, I will add links to specific resources and courses where you can learn more of those concepts. By doing this, you will not only know what concepts to learn, you'll know where to learn them, and most importantly, you'll know how to apply them in a real world setting. So here is our realistic example. It is something that we all can understand and probably relate to because we must have faced this in real life. A tourist lands in a foreign country, let's say Japan, and does not speak Japanese. However, they want to explore places in Japan and find an easy way to navigate through the cities without getting lost. Now let's imagine that a client has hired us as a UX UI designer to solve this problem for them. Let's go step by step on how we would tackle this as a UX UI designer. First, we want to sit down with the client and understand why they want to solve this problem in the first place. We then want to talk to potential users and hear about their thoughts and experiences with regards to this problem. Also, we will analyze a few competitor apps that already exist and that are solving this problem today. This will help us get an idea of what's out there and probably help us improve upon what's existing already. This entire process of talking to your client, talking to users, and analyzing competitors is called UX research. And there are various methods out there that can help you collect all of this data. You can check links in the description to learn more about UX research and all the other concepts that I will explain in this video. Once you have done your research, you now want to sit down and think about ideas to solve the problems that you identified. Let's say some problems that you identified was tourists don't know how to use public transport, or they're unsure of which areas in the country or in the city are safe to visit and at what time. So based on these problems, some of the feature ideas could be to show a map of safe and unsafe zones within the city based on the time that the user selects. Another feature could be allow a user to enter their location and the destination that they want to go to and show them the fastest route and the different modes of transport that they can take to reach their destination, similar to Google Maps. The whole point is to look at the problems that you identified and try to think of solutions that would solve for those problems. This process of coming up with ideas to solve such problems is part of a concept called product strategy. So let's say you have mapped out all of these ideas or you have made a list of them. You now want to structure these ideas so that it makes sense to the user when you finally design and present it to them. Currently, your ideas may be scattered, so the first thing you want to do is group ideas that are related to each other into chunks that make sense. After making these groups, you want to label them with short keywords that make sense. This process is called mapping or site mapping. Essentially, these groups that you've created would be the high-level features that would sit on your primary navigation in your application or website. So let's say these are our different groups, and if a user wants to find a restaurant, they would tap on food and then search for a particular restaurant based on a certain criteria. Now, for each feature within these groups, you want to dive deeper and detail them out more. This essentially means that you want to come up with sub-features, which is another form of product strategy. So let's say in our travel feature, to help the user use public transport, we could have sub-features like show the user their fastest route or show alternatives, allow the user to switch between the mode of transport, for example, walking, car, train, bus, and so on, or allow the user to sort by the cheapest route. Once you have listed all of these sub-features and built out a feature, it's time to organize the sub-features within this feature in a coherent and consistent flow. To do this, you have to think of a scenario that a user would be in while using this feature. So for instance, in a travel feature, the scenario could be the user wants to go to Mount Fuji from Tokyo. So in this scenario, how would we want the user to use this feature? Which sub-features do we want to show them first, and how will we help them navigate through all the offerings that we have within this feature? This means that do you want the user to type their destination first, or do you want them to type the source first, or do you want them to choose their mode of transport first? At the end of the day, you want the user to enter their source, destination, and select the mode of transport. However, the manner in which you present these sub-features is where your flow comes in. Organizing these sub-features in a cohesive and coherent manner is called flow mapping, and these flows are called user flows or task flows. Now, for each of these flows within these features, you want to finally start creating screens for them. These are the actual screens that the user will see when they will be using your app. So going back to our scenario example of going to Mount Fuji from Tokyo, let's say the first step is allowing the user to select their destination. So we will start sketching solutions for this step. And similarly, we'll be doing the same for all the following steps. This process of sketching rough ideas of screens is called wireframing. Finally, we will take these wireframes and convert them into high-fidelity visual design screens. Essentially, the designer will sit with the client to understand the branding and other such guidelines to help them convert these wireframes into high-fidelity mockups. The client may already have their brand guidelines in place, such as color, typography, illustrations, and so on. So all the UI designer has to do is apply those guidelines to the wireframes, and the final result would look like this. So that was a high-level walkthrough of how a UX UI designer takes a problem from start to finish. Obviously, it involves a lot more work, but the whole point was to give you an idea of what a designer actually does and how these concepts come into play while working on a project. As you learn more about UX UI concepts from the resources below, you should apply them into practice projects on the side. It's only by applying these concepts that will help you grasp them better. Don't just redesign websites or applications for the sake of it. You should always look for a problem to solve. So in our example, we didn't just design a travel app. Instead, we framed a problem statement first, and then we solved for it, which eventually turned into a travel app. So starting with a problem is super important when you're working on your personal projects. Stay tuned for more tutorials on UX UI design, such as building your first portfolio and applying for jobs and internships. Thanks for watching.